CBS Sports welcomes you to the following presentation of the National Football League.
Welcome back to Baltimore on a very nice Sunday afternoon. A little bit overcast, temperature 72 degrees and not much of a breeze. The Baltimore Ravens won the toss and they will defer. Ed Reed will have to wait his turn to get back on the field here at M&T Bank Stadium. Baltimore set to kick it away. Keyshawn Martin is the deep man. There is John Harbaugh on the sideline, coming fresh off of a Super Bowl championship. And boy, they did a little celebrating here in Baltimore, didn't they?
Well, it was their second one, and I don't know how sweet that must have felt to all these Ravens fans. Especially, it was almost like a Hollywood script with Ray Lewis at the beginning of the year announcing that it was going to be his final season, the miracle win in Denver, and then the run on to the Super Bowl championship. It just almost a fantasy, except in Baltimore, it was reality.
Justin Tucker set to kick it away. And we are underway in Baltimore. Martin will be able to return this one about 4 yards deep in his own end zone, right up the middle. And just across the 20 to about the 21 or the 22-yard line. Matt Schaub is the Texans quarterback, now in his 10th season out of Virginia. 6 touchdown passes, 3 interceptions in Houston's 2 come-from-behind wins so far this season.
Well, this is a football team that is 2-0, but could very well be 0-2.
There is Matt Elam, who is filling the void at safety left by Ed Reed. Arian Foster, Greg Jones in the backfield for Houston. Play fake to Foster. And out to the side to the tight end, Owen Daniels, and he is thrown for a loss. Marcus Spears making the stop. The Houston offensive line missing a very talented left tackle in Dwayne Brown. Turf toe has him sidelined. Ryan Harris starts. Andre Johnson's head injury last week, not so severe that he can't make his 141st consecutive game, adding to his Houston franchise record.
Now, major kudos to Marcus Spears, a defensive lineman getting all the way out there and blowing up that screen. That was a big-time play.
On 2nd and 12, this is Foster, and Foster breaking tackles out across the 25 to about the 28-yard line. The Ravens' 3-4 defense has a Rock of Gibraltar on the nose in number 92, Haloti Ngata, 6'4", 340 pounds. Ray Lewis retired. Terrell Suggs, now the undisputed leader of that linebacking corps. 2 sacks in his first 2 games. And as we mentioned, Matt Elam helping fill the void in the secondary left by Ed Reed, the first-round draft pick out of Florida. 3rd and 4. Shaw, this side, that's complete to Daniels. And Daniels with enough for the first down.
Well, Owen Daniels is an extremely accomplished tight end. He's not a great blocker, but he's a gifted receiver with soft hands. The simple out pattern right in front of Ladarius Webb, who can't get up in time. And again, this Houston offense now, especially in the passing game, has some real balance with the addition of their rookie DeAndre Hopkins.
Ben Tate into the backfield. Shaw going to get it off to Tate on the far side and out to about the 40-yard line before he's stopped there. There's Gary Kubiak, 8th season as the head man in Houston. 2 straight AFC South championships in 2011-2012 playoffs.
Well, one of the things Gary's really wondering today is how his 2 offensive tackles, Derek Newton and Ryan Harris, are going to hold up against Doomerville and Suggs. That's a big challenge. Well, there's a false start. Ryan Harris.
False start. Offense number 68. 5-yard penalty. 2nd down.
Ryan Harris is filling the shoes of Dwayne Brown, the Pro Bowler and All-Pro left tackle, who hurt his toe last week, and that's just, even though he's in a 2-point stance without a hand on the ground, he simulated a snap, and that's a penalty.
Not unusual for a visiting team
No.
here in Baltimore.
No. And the crowd noise is a thing in and of itself, but I'm telling you, going against either Doomerville or Suggs, it makes anybody at the tackle position a little twitchy.
On 2nd and 9, this is Tate. Gonna come this way, dipping to the outside. He's forced out of bounds, short of the 40-yard line by Corey Graham. There is John Harbaugh. Look at that winning percentage. Now in his 6th year as the head coach of Baltimore. 3 AFC championships and a Super Bowl title.
A good look at that patented Harbaugh intensity. He and his brother Jim cut from the same cloth in that department.
3rd and 5. Got rid of it and complete across the 45, close to midfield to Andre Johnson, and that's a first down for the Texans.
Well, that time the Ravens came with 6, which means you're going to see some man coverage downfield, and you're asking an awful lot on anybody to go man up with Andre Johnson, and Jimmy Smith just not up to it. He loses his footing as he tries to drive back to the ball, and that was a pretty simple pitch and catch between Schaub and Johnson. If you're going to bring 6 and you don't get there, man, you got to have tight coverage on the back end.
104 straight games with a catch for Andre Johnson. This is Foster, and Foster finds running room and bursts into Baltimore territory down at about the 47. Pernell McPhee with the tackle as you look at Joe Flacco waiting his chance on the sideline.
Well, it's a defense for the Baltimore Ravens that is finding its way. Obviously, with all the changes they had, all the people that are playing elsewhere or who have retired, it's going to take a while for this unit to gel. But there's enough talent there. There's no reason to think it's not going to happen.
Houston offense eating up the first 4 minutes and change at the top of this game. Play fake again. Plenty of time for Schaub going deep, and it is incomplete. Intended for the rookie DeAndre Hopkins. Jimmy Smith was covering. We have a penalty marker.
And the penalty marker is right, devolving Smith and Hopkins.
Prior to the pass being thrown, illegal contact, defense, number 22, 5-yard penalty, automatic first down.
Well, Jimmy Smith, here he is right here, the former number 1 pick. He's locked up there. He's going to just run. He's got man cover, and right there, well, yeah, you could see the double move by DeAndre Hopkins fooled Jimmy Smith, and he put his hand around his waist and hooked him.
Now, if that ball had been in the air, the line of scrimmage would be much further downfield. As it is, it's the 42 and a first down. 8th play of this drive for Houston. Straight drop. Schaub over the middle, inside the 30-yard line to Owen Daniels once again. And that's another Houston first down.
And there's Matt Elam, the rookie free safety, who has to come in and make the play. When you spend all week getting ready to play the Texans, this is a staple of their offense. Owen Daniels, Garrett Graham being in the middle of the field. And I think the Ravens are doing a really smart thing with Matt Elam. Michael Huff started the season, put Elam in there, let him play, let him grow. By the time the playoffs get here, he won't be a rookie anymore.
Schaub 5 out of 5 throwing the football, going to give it to Ben Tate here, and he is tripped up and across the line of scrimmage to about the 28-yard line by Terrell Suggs. Good, solid drive, helped along by a penalty. And Terrence Cody, number 62, is down on the field. Chris Canty is already out of this game, and that's a hit to the front line Baltimore can't take. We'll be right back. Terrence Cody was helped off the field. Appears to be an injury to his left knee. We'll try to keep track of that as soon as we get word. Meanwhile, it's 2nd and 9. Houston at the Baltimore 29. inside the 25 to about the 23.
Well, the Houston Texans will run the football. They will run the football even if they're not successful running the football. It is the basis upon which their passing game is constructed, and Gary Kubiak will keep it coming. Now, in 2 games, they've been running it very well with that zone blocking scheme, 146 yards a game. That's excellent production from the run attack.
3rd and 4. Shot. Incomplete. Intended for Owen Daniels.
Oh, and that was not a good throw by Matt Schaub. That's just a quick little slant pattern by Daniels, and it looked to me like that throw from Schaub was way behind him. You can see he's got to go. Owen Daniels is moving at a pretty good clip to his left, and he had to try to reach behind him with his left hand and pull that out of there.
Now here is Randy Bullock, who has only managed just 1 field goal in 5 tries, but that was a game winner. And we have a penalty marker.
Do the Ravens have 12 guys on the field?
Illegal substitution. 12 men on the field with the snap imminent. Defense. 5-yard penalty. The result of the penalty will be first down.
Wow.
Wow is right. A pre-snap error like that. Take a look at it. We've got to look at it from behind. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There is number 12. And the NFL has tweaked that rule now that if the snap is imminent, they don't wait for the snap any longer. If you've got 12 out there, they're going to throw the yellow.
2 first downs on penalties on this drive for the Texans. Arian Foster inside the 10 to about the 8. Brought down by James Ehedibo and linebacker Josh Bynes.
Well, Terrell Suggs is arguing that he was held as he tried to set the edge. Right in front of us, number 55, and he gets put down on the ground as he took the inside rush.
It's been a long wait for Joe Flacco. We are coming up on 8 minutes remaining.
Especially impressive on the road, a drive like this.
1st and goal. Foster can't spin away from trouble. James Ehedibo, the first one to hit him from his safety position.
That's when you know you're bringing safety help up to aid the running game when Ehedibo is making the hit behind the line of scrimmage. James Ehedibo is a good player, not a great player, but he'll stick his face in there. If he gets a chance to deliver a big hit, he'll do it. He's
Double
not
tight
Bernard
ends.
Pollard, but he's okay.
Double tight ends along with Foster, who faked to him, and the pass over the middle incomplete. Andre Johnson, the intended receiver, and that one sailed into the end zone.
And it went right behind Jimmy Smith, who's lamenting that he didn't get a good look at it. And again, it would have been, he's moving one direction, the ball's going the other. That ball just sailed on Matt Schaub. And I don't know if Jimmy Smith didn't see the ball until the last minute. He wasn't even able to touch it.
Third and goal. Schaub with time. Inside the 5, incomplete. Intended for Daniels, broken up by Ehedibo.
Well, no secret in this red zone that Owen Daniels on that crossing pattern is the guy that Matt Schaub is going to try to find. He gets the ball on his hands, but Ehedibo pulls his right arm down. That was extremely tight and really good coverage by James Ehedibo.
So here is Bullock now from 27 yards out to give Houston a lead. And it is good. The Texans take up more than half the first quarter on an opening drive for a 3-0 lead.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Southwest Airlines. Find our fares online only at southwest.com. CenturyLink, your link to what's next. And by the U.S. Postal Service. Schedule your free package pickup today.
Welcome back to Baltimore. 16-play, 69-yard drive, almost 8 minutes off the clock, and John Harbaugh's crew managed to only allow a field goal.
Well, I don't think there's a lot of satisfaction over on the Houston sideline. When you put together a drive like that, run that many plays, and get that deep, and then you have to settle for a field goal, that's a bittersweet experience. The Ravens made the stand when they had to.
Sean Drone is deep. Chance to run this one out. Across the 15, and we have penalty markers on the field as he is brought down shy of the 20-yard line. Here's John Perry.
During the return, holding number 94 of the return team, half the distance to the goal, 1st and 10, timeout on the field.
When we come back, Ed Reed will officially make his return to Baltimore as we continue in just a moment. This week, don't miss the show that's in the league by itself with guys who take on all 32 teams and each other every week. James Brown, Phil Simms, Chris Collinsworth with the artistry of NFL films and the chemistry of the boys. Catch Inside the NFL Wednesday at 9 only on Showtime. Joe Flacco taking the helm for the first time today at quarterback off a great postseason capped by a Super Bowl MVP performance. Looking across the line at Ed Reed, former teammate, and that is Bernard Pierce out across the 20-yard line. The only change in Baltimore's offensive line this season is at center, where second-year man Gino Gradkowski has replaced the veteran Matt Burke. The backs and receivers will not include Ray Rice, sidelined by a hip injury. You just saw Bernard Pierce, who makes the start at running back. Once again. Now, when the Texans defense is on the field, all eyes are on number 99, J.J. Watt, the 2012 Defensive Player of the Year. ACL injury cut Brian Cushing's season to 5 games last year. He's back strong. And Ed Reed. So many great years here. 11 of them in all. Now a member of the Houston Texans. On 3rd and short, over the middle. Incomplete at the 20-yard line. Marlon Brown, the rookie from Georgia.
So this time Joe Flacco tries to find Marlon Brown on a quick slant and just leads him just a shade too much. If that ball would have been just a little bit closer to Brown, I think he would have been able to make the catch. Joe just put it, I think, just about a foot too far out in front of the rookie.
That is the 13th 3-and-out forced by the Houston defense this season. That's the most in the NFL. Keyshawn Martin is deep.
I guarantee the Ravens defense was looking for more of a blow than that.
Martin will watch this one sail out of bounds. And we'll see where the final placement is. 5:47 to play. Here in the first quarter, Houston with the ball back, leading 3-0.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Toyota Care. Scheduled maintenance, no cost. And by Bud Light, official beer sponsor of the NFL.
That beautiful shot from on high being provided by MetLife, and we thank you very much. Once again, Houston taking over, this time close to their own 40-yard line. Penalty marker flies as Schaub skips out of trouble and throws the ball away. Let's check the flag. This is going to be against the Texans.
Illegal formation, offense, number 86. The tight end was covered up. 5-yard penalty, will replay first down. There's no foul for intentional grounding. The quarterback was out of the pocket, and the ball landed beyond the line of scrimmage.
I think John Perry's referring to 88 Garrett Graham.
I think so. I think he's talking about this tight end. This receiver to his outside has to be back off the line for him to be out there to be eligible. I believe did I circle the tackle there on that one? It's
still a penalty. First and 15. This is Tate. With a little bit of running room back past the original line of scrimmage. Our first update of the day. Back to New York.
Hey, Greg, and it's a fantasy update for Bill Cowher.
Yeah, we called out that Washington defense, but right here, watch this. D'Angelo Hall's going to step in front. A pass intended for Calvin Johnson, takes it 17 yards back, and the Redskins score on defense. They're up 7-0 over Detroit.
Greg Gumbel and the Hall of Famer, Dan Dierdorf.
All right, guys, thank you. 2nd and 9 now for Schaub and the Texans. Looking left and goes down. Terrell Suggs. And we get a penalty marker in the backfield.
Terrell doesn't know there's a penalty flag on the ground. It's holding, though, against the Texans. We talked a little bit earlier about Gary Kubiak's concerns about his 2 tackles being able to handle these edge rushers of the Ravens.
Holding, offense, number 75. Penalty's been declined. Result of the play, 3rd down.
Right in front of us, there's Suggs, spins to the inside and catches Derek Newton completely flat-footed. That was an outstanding move by what looks to me to be a completely physically rejuvenated Terrell Suggs. 25 pounds lighter and quicker.
His 3rd sack of the season. 3rd and 17. This is Foster. Foster with a little bit of running room, but not nearly enough for a first down. He'll come up about 10 or 11 yards short, and that'll force the punt. A much better defensive stand for the Baltimore Ravens this time around, and especially being shorthanded on that front line. Terrence Cody was taken to the locker room, and as you talked about during the timeout when we were looking at their situation, they only have 1 spare defensive lineman today.
Yeah, the good news is that McPhee, Doomerville, Upshaw, if they have to, they're big enough guys they could slide inside.
Tamden Doss going to let this one sail over his head, and it's going to be down at about the 1-yard line by Bryce McCain. Shane Leckler has made a career of doing that. And boy, all Joe Poole has to do is go 99 yards now. 3-0 Texans.
For watching the NFL on CBS.
So strange to see Shane Leckler in anything except an Oakland Raider uniform.
But every
13 seasons as a Raider.
But every time he hits that ball, Greg, it sounds exactly the same. A thud.
This is Monte Leach. And Leach, maybe with a yard, no more than that. Fantasy football fans, there's still time to get in and play with the best this season. New games are available to join today. Sign up now at cbssports.com/football. Ravens having to do it today without Ray Rice, who is out with the hip injury. And this is Bernard Pierce. And Pierce out to about the 4-yard line. Once again, let's get back to our NFL Today studio. JB and the coach.
Carolina on top, Coach.
Yeah, 4th down and 4th and inches right here. Mike Tolbert is going to take us from 1 yard out and score. And Carolina jumps up on New York Giants, 7-0.
Greg and Dan.
Dan, don't you love to see that 4th and 1 and 4th and goal, you know, at the 1 yard line? Go for it rather than kick the field goal.
Darn right, why not? Well, I mean, this early in the season, and let's face it, Carolina's not exactly a Super Bowl favorite. A little less pressure on them.
Flacco on 3rd and 7 and overthrows Dallas Clark. And now onto the field comes the punting unit for the Ravens.
Well, Joe Flacco had no choice but to put that ball over the top and hope that Clark could make a play on it. DJ Swearinger had really good coverage on him underneath. That's no place to make a mistake.
Both Baltimore drives have been tough ones to start for Flacco. He started from his own 7 and his own 1. Sam Cook kick out of his end zone.
But 6 offensive plays, all we've seen from the Ravens to this point.
Line drive. Martin, his own 45. Slips, gets back up again, and tripped up at about 42 or 43-yard line. And here's a late flag. Here's John Perry.
After the play, personal foul, kicking team. Number 28, 15-yard penalty, late hit, 1st and 10, Houston.
That's Brendan Trowick, a rookie free agent out of Troy. John Harbaugh says he never saw it. Doesn't matter. 2.5 to play in the first. The mind of a quarterback. Join Phil Simms, Rich Gannon, Steve Berline, and Adam Shine on NFL Monday QB. Tomorrow at 6:30 Eastern on CBS Sports Network, the 24-hour home of CBS Sports. Big difference. Field position. Advantage Houston. Yet they only lead by 3. First down. This is Foster.
Greg, I just want to go back to that punt where they call the penalty on number 28, Brendan Trowick. We can't find the penalty anywhere as we scour the replays.
Offside.
I just tell you,
Defense.
it wasn't 28.
Number 58, 5-yard penalty, replay, first down.
Meanwhile, Elvis Dumerville called for being offside on that play.
Right. So the Ravens with penalties, this one on Dumerville, but the first one, I can tell you, it was not on number 28. So he was impugned, and I believe he was innocent.
Impugned? Impugned? The first time I'll see. I don't know that I've heard that for a couple of seasons now. 1st and 5 from the 24. Foster, left side, running room, first down yardage to about the 16. Darrell Smith.
Well, a good look at that zone blocking scheme. And if you're going to be the running back in this blocking scheme, you got to be patient. And Arian Foster is that. And again, he floats the line of scrimmage, looks for that crease, and that was a good example of a pretty good sized one opening up in front of him. The whole concept, you run the front side of the defensive lineman on there, and then you cut off the backside, a crease opens up.
The 17-yard line, Foster again, and Foster brought down at about the 13. The word from the Baltimore Ravens is that Terrence Cody has a sprained knee, and his return today is doubtful.
And Darrell Smith, the new addition at middle linebacker at that time for the Ravens, makes what might have been a touchdown-saving tackle. The Ravens very fortunate to get a veteran of his leadership abilities, his intelligence, to try to fill in for Ray Lewis. 9 years he toiled in Jacksonville. What a treat this must be for Darrell Smith to be on a winner.
2nd and 6. Foster shakes a tackle to about the 10. And Darrell Smith again making the tackle.
Boy, Josh Bynes, though, the linebacker, had a shot, and he could not make the tackle on Arian Foster. Foster ran right through. That's where Dean Pease had his defense designed perfectly. He had a linebacker to meet the running back at the line of scrimmage. He didn't get him down.
So the Ravens now looking at a defensive stop here at 3rd and 3. Tate in the backfield for Houston.
They did it the last time.
Shaw to throw. Juggle, grabbed by Andre Johnson, but that's not nearly enough for a first down, and that'll bring the field goal unit on again.
And you don't see this every day where Andre Johnson mishandles a football that is really a fairly routine catch. Webb was all over him, but he should have caught that cleanly.
End of the first, 3-0 to Houston. Well, once again, the Baltimore defense has stood tall when it needed to. Coming in today, 7 red zone trips for the Houston offense, 7 touchdowns, 2 red zone trips today, 2 field goals.
Well, against good football teams, settling for field goals instead of touchdowns when you're that far into the red zone is a pretty good recipe to lose the game.
Assuming Randy Bullock makes good on this one from 29 yards. Good. So just seconds into the second quarter, Houston extends its lead now to 6-0.
But if you're trying to rehabilitate a kicker who had missed 4 in a row, give him a couple chip shots to work in the old confidence department, and that's what Bullock's had going for him.
We'll take a timeout. Baltimore with the ball when we come back.
Welcome back to Baltimore. Shane Leckler is the holder for the Texans, and look how he has to handle a bad snap, and he finally gets it in position, spins the laces away from the foot of Randy Bullock. Not only is he an all-pro punter, but pretty nice job of holding right there. He turned what could have been a disaster into a successful field goal.
14:56 to play in the first half.
Telling you again, Greg, 2 field goals for the Texans. Right now, with the kind of movement they've had offensively, disappointing.
Baltimore has had no first down so far today. This is Sean Jerome out of his own end zone across the 20 up to about the 23 or the 24-yard line. Brandon Harris with the tackle once again to New York. James Brown, Bill Cowher.
Coach Hoyer trying to make a statement.
I'll tell you what, the Cleveland Browns have a good young tight end, Jordan Cameron. 19 yards right here from Brian Hoyer, second of the day, 14-7. Cleveland goes up on Minnesota.
Wow. Greg Gumbel, Dan Deardle.
Thank you, guys. Cleveland in the spotlight with that trade, and it's one of those trades, Dan, that I believe is going to be a benefit to both teams. Indianapolis more so this year. Vontae Leach out of the backfield making the catch and out just across the 30-yard line.
Well, it's always extra special when Vontae Leach gets to play against his old team, the Houston Texans, where he spent 4 years and was not happy about his departure. He thought he wasn't treated fairly down there, but he couldn't be happier being a member of the Baltimore Ravens. And they're thrilled to have him.
On 2nd and 3, this is Pierce, and Pierce tripped up just as he crossed the 30-yard line by Antonio Smith, excuse me.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about Antonio Smith, Greg. I think he handles it pretty well. All the publicity that goes to J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt's not the only good defensive lineman for the Houston Texans. Antonio Pierce has been doing it for a long time. Even I said Antonio Smith. He has been a solid defensive lineman for a long, long time.
Flacco on 3rd and 3, throwing, and that is complete out towards the sideline. Caught by Marlon Brown, and that's short of a first down.
And a late flag. The head linesman.
This is the rookie Marlon Brown pulling it in.
Boy, what a great job. Oh, he's going to get taunting, I bet. Jonathan Joseph, watch him on the right. He's going to come in and start leaning in. And
After the play, unsportsmanlike contact, unsportsmanlike conduct, taunting, defense, number 22, 15-yard penalty, automatic first down.
John Perry said 22, but it was Jonathan Joseph, number 24.
It was Jonathan Joseph, who's the trailer. First of all, what a tremendous effort by Marlon Brown. Goes down, controls the football. Joseph's trying to say that it's an incomplete catch, but he gets right in. And I'm telling you, the NFL has made it known to these players they are not going to have it. They have been telling these players the whole offseason, all through training camp, the verbal abuse has got to stop.
It's just a stupid thing to do. Flacco. Penalty marker throw. Wide open on the near side of the field is Ed Dixon, the tight end. And this is going to come back.
It looks like they're going to call a face
Personal
mask.
foul, face mask, number 78, offense, 15-yard penalty, first down.
The veteran left tackle, Bryant McKinney. And that will negate a huge pickup.
Brian McKinney there on the left, number 78. Haven't seen it yet. There it is. Still hadn't. He got his hands in the face. I didn't see him actually grab the face mask. Working against Whitney Merciless. He certainly got his hands on the face mask. I was looking for the head to jerk or some kind of a violent movement. Didn't see it.
So the Ravens finally get their first down of the day, and on the very first play, they get backed up 15 yards. Flacco out of the shotgun. That's complete, and knocked out of bounds at the 35 is Pierce. Brooks Reed with the hit.
Take a listen to this at the end of this.
Kareem Jackson also coming in and getting a piece of it. And only a gain of 2 as you look at the numbers today. 2nd and 23. Out to the near sideline, Torrey Smith was his first catch of the day. And Jonathan Joseph on the tight coverage.
Very tight coverage. Once you see a guy like Joseph covering like that, a little out and up might not be a bad idea, especially with a guy with Torrey Smith's speed. But Joseph was sitting on that route.
3rd and a big 18 for a first down for Flacco and the Ravens.
Only 3-man rush.
Over here, complete to Dallas Clark. And Clark spinning forward to about the 45. And we get a penalty marker again, and again it's going to be against
Personal
the
foul,
Ravens.
face mask, number 78, offense, 15-yard penalty.
That's 2 in a row for Bryant McKinney.
That's Bryant McKinney again, you're right. There he is working on the left. Oh, and that time he does. I mean, look, he gets his hand. He actually grabs the face mask right there. That's on J.J. Watt, who flipped over to that side. McKinney not only got his hands on the face mask, he got it under the face mask, and then to go for the trifecta, he actually grabbed the face mask.
When we talked with J.J. Watt, he admitted, yeah, he's seeing a little bit more attention already this season.
Well, that's just, again, though, that's a forced error. A guy like Watt, so active, so powerful, he forces McKinney into doing some abstract stuff.
Flacco under pressure, tried to get it away. That looks like it might be a loose ball. Covered by the Ravens.
Well, Joe's trying to argue that it was an incomplete pass, but it looked to me like his hand was doing a lot of moving without the ball in it. Does he start the throwing motion? Absolutely not. That is a fumble all the way. I think Antonio Smith
did
knocked
get it
out.
from behind.
Yep. And luckily that was covered up by the Ravens. That was a live ball.
So Cook will kick it away to Keyshawn Martin. Drives Martin back to his own 22. And brought down at about the 26 or 27-yard line. Battle at the line of scrimmage, you'd have to say the Texans are winning it so far today. They lead 6-0. Houston Texans from their own 28-yard line. Shaw had to get rid of it. Under pressure from Josh Bynes. It'll be 2nd and 10. Tomorrow on CBS, it's the mother of all Mondays as the final season of How I Met Your Mother begins. That's tomorrow at 8, 7 Central Time, only CBS.
And again, even though they have moved the football and they've had some success in the running game, this Texans offensive line is struggling to keep this Baltimore pass rush away from Shaw. They're really missing Dwayne Brown at left tackle.
This is Tate across the 30 out to the 32, and since Shaw began the game 5 out of 5 throwing the football, he has gone 1 for 5 for -1 yard. 3rd and 7 now.
Well, now on a 3rd and passing situation, Elvis Doomerville checks in. Courtney Upshaw plays most of the rundowns, and they try to get Doomerville in there.
Houston has dominated. Time of possession.
Field goals, though, instead of touchdowns.
And Houston takes a timeout to talk about the 3rd and 7, and we'll be back to Baltimore in just a moment.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by McDonald's. I'm loving it. Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. And by Verizon. Verizon's 4G LTE is in more places than any other 4G network.
Part of the landscape that is Baltimore, Maryland, as Matt Schaub looks at a 3rd and 7. Stepping up, throwing, crossing pattern is complete, and right at the first down marker is Keyshawn Martin.
And if he picks up this first down, which I think he does, it can't be much more than by a yard. Fortunately, Schaub was able to step up into the pocket.
And we have a penalty marker down. And it's going to back the Texans up.
It sure is.
No, and now John Perry has picked it up. But he did back the team up. He just didn't make the announcement. That would have to be a hold. Really, this is Arian Foster, and Foster out close to the 25-yard line, and this will result in a punt.
Well, that was a penalty enforcement without any communication as to what it was. But it was a very fortunate in its timing for the Baltimore Ravens because it went from a Houston first down to now a punting situation after the unsuccessful conversion on 3rd and long.
Here is Leckler to kick again. Camden Doss is deep. What a kick. Doss eluding tacklers and brought down at about the 27, maybe the 28-yard line.
Well, Baltimore has run a total of 12 plays so far in this game. That time Joe Flacco, the coverage forces a bad pass. That one was a little out in front of Brown. And that was a fumble by the pressure brought up the middle by Antonio Smith. Now, I know one of the things that this Baltimore offense has to do, they've got to try to loosen up this Texans defense. They got to take a couple shots.
Number 71 is reported as an eligible receiver.
The announcement from Perry that Rick Wagner, backup offensive lineman, is coming in, going to play tight end. But Joe's got to try to get the ball downfield. You got to force it. Even you don't throw into coverage, but at least you got to let the defense know you can do it.
This is Pierce. Not much there. We check in once again with JB and the coach in New York.
Green Bay's D.
Yeah, after being down 14-0, right here, Clay Matthews comes in, hits Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis. M.D. Jennings is going to pick this up from 24 yards out. 10 unanswered points by Green Bay. They cut the lead to 14-10.
Back to Greg Gumbel and Dan Deerdorf.
All right, guys, thank you. Joe Flacco spreads the field on 2nd and 9.
Maybe a double move here from somebody and out and up. Any sort of thing to try to loosen up this secondary.
Short pass off the hands of Dallas Clark. 3rd and 9. The natives are a little restless.
Well, Dallas Clark came here as a free agent, and it's pretty apparent watching the first couple of games on tape and now this that the timing just isn't 100% there between Clark and Joe Flacco. Again, that ball was, a little farther away from Clark than he would have liked, but I've seen Dallas Clark make that catch 100 times.
Remember, Flacco was missing Deontay Thompson and Jacoby Jones and Dennis Pitta, and this one is on the money, and that's Dallas Clark, and Clark spinning his way to midfield. Ed Reed with the tackle, but not before a big pickup for a first down.
5-man pass rush The green dog comes late with the 6, but Joe stands in there. That's never been a problem for Joe Flacco, and that ball was right where it needed to be. Here's Ed Reed coming in from free safety. He gets Dallas Clark on the ground. Ed was never known as a violent hitter, but he got it done there.
First down for the Ravens in midfield. Flacco pulls it down twice and then throws incomplete over the middle for Pierce. And we get another penalty marker.
And this is where Joe Flacco is missing his security blanket, I think, Ray Rice.
Holding, offense, number 72, 10-yard penalty, replay, first down.
That's Kelechi Osemele, the left guard.
Yeah, the left side of the Ravens offensive line is having a tough go so far. Osemele with that one. McKinney's already had a couple. But we were talking to Joe about Ray Rice and, you know, how quickly Ray would diagnose the rush and realize if his guy wasn't coming, how quickly he got out into the pattern and became an outlet for Joe Flacco. And Joe knows that Bernard Pierce isn't going to be able to do that as quickly.
This is Pierce. And Pierce is down. You're an astounding number, Dan. Baltimore already has committed 8 penalties today for 77 yards.
Well, that's hard to overcome. And you look at the number of plays that Houston has run, you look at their time of possession, you look at statistics like those penalties, and then you look at the scoreboard and you say, wow, we're fortunate to only be down 6-0.
Second and 17. Flacco steps out of trouble and throws incomplete. And back to the original line of scrimmage is Torrey Smith. And remember, this Baltimore offense struggled in the first half last week before rallying in the second half against Cleveland.
Yeah, Cleveland was throwing a shutout at them. And they still only ended up scoring 14 points. Now, I know that's lowly Cleveland. Well, lowly Cleveland has a better defense than a lot of people think.
Here's a 3rd and 10 now. Flacco got them to jump.
Neutral zone infraction, defense, number 58, 5-yard penalty, third down.
That one was on Brooks Reed, although you could probably have called J.J. Watt on it too.
They moved in unison. I think that was a pretty good piece of work by Joe Flacco, using a hard count, changing his voice inflection, and he got these two guys guessing. Much more manageable third down.
6:31 to play in the first half. That's complete for a first down inside the 40, close to the 35, Brandon Stokely. And that'll move the chains.
Now, the one thing about Brandon Stokely, you know he'll be in the right place. And working against the Houston zone, he just sat out in a soft little pocket right there. Here's J.J. Watt working on the inside. Good job by Gino Gradkowski, the new center. That's a highlight reel for him, taking on J.J. Watt pretty much by himself and putting him on the ground.
Sean Drone has come into the Baltimore backfield on first down. And Drone gets the handoff, and he is dragged down almost immediately by D.J. Swearinger, the rookie second-round draft pick out of South Carolina.
Well, that's closing from the backside. That guy's not supposed to be able to make this play. But look how flat Swearinger goes down the line of scrimmage. You know, he's unaccounted for because he's coming off the backside. Oftentimes that guy takes a bad angle and isn't a factor in the play.
Flacco will go deep. Incomplete. And penalty markers thrown. Marlon Brown covered by Kareem Jackson.
I don't know that Kareem Jackson ever turned to play the football. If he got in trouble, that's where it was.
Pass interference, defense. Number 25, contact without playing the ball, automatic first down.
Kareem Jackson right there at the last second turned and looked at the ball. I got to tell you, I've seen a lot worse than that was never called for interference. I think that was just the technique by Kareem Jackson that brought the flag more than the actual foul itself.
Defensive coordinator Wade Phillips not looking pleased. New set of downs for Flacco at the 15-yard line.
As a corner, Greg, when you don't whip your head around until late.
Flacco throwing, end zone, incomplete. Torrey Smith double covered on this side of the end zone. Ed Reed was there along with Jonathan Joseph.
And there's another flag.
5-yard penalty. First down.
That penalty is on Brian Cushing.
Well, Joe Flacco was having to deal with pressure immediately. It's both A-gaps, J.J. Watt and Brian Cushing, come in on both of the A-gaps, and Cushing just got a head start, and that was Cushing diving at the feet of Joe Flacco. It certainly would explain why he was able to beat the blocks. He was in between them before the ball was snapped.
So it's a 1st and 5 now for the Ravens. Flacco, end zone, incomplete. Intended for Dallas Clark, defended by Danielle Manning.
Well, talk about two veteran players here, Clark and Manning. Danielle Manning got a right to stand his ground in the end zone. And Dallas Clark ran into him. That's a good non-call by the official.
So on 2nd and 5, it's Leach and Bernard Pierce behind Flacco, and this is Pierce. And Pierce, nowhere to go. Number 84, Ed Dixon, lost the helmet. And it'll be 3rd and 5.
Almost looked like there was more of a crease off the left side, and Bernard Pierce cut it back to the right. Talking to Wilbert Montgomery yesterday, the running back coach, he just loves Bernard Pierce.
Only 14 rushing yards on the day for Baltimore. Flacco running out of time, looking for room to move, and throw it away. Good job by Flacco. J.J. Watt was in hot pursuit.
Well, it's nice sometimes to have the athletic ability of a Michael Vick, but sometimes instincts are a wonderful thing too. And Joe Flacco, seeing Dallas Clark, nowhere to go down there. Marlon Brown, completely covered. Had nowhere to go with the football. And for a guy who's not known as this stellar athlete, Joe Flacco looked pretty good there, evading the pass rush.
So Justin Tucker, who is just 2 out of 4 field goals this year from 28 yards out. And that will cut Houston's lead in half. 4 minutes, 11 seconds to play in the first half. Houston's lead is now 6-3. Dan, those numbers will make for an ugly football game, which this has been so far.
15 accepted penalties already, and we're not even at halftime yet.
That's the most in an NFL game for the first half this season. Martin in his own end zone for the kick from Tucker. And Martin will not run this one out of the end zone. It'll come out to the 20-yard line. Gary Kubiak trying to figure out how to turn field goals into touchdowns.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Charles Schwab and by Microsoft Surface. Click in and do more.
Hey, download NFL Mobile and never be without football. Get coverage of every NFL game and exclusive premium content on your smartphone. Call ** NFL 635 or go to NFL.com/mobile. Foster in the backfield. Foster in motion. Schaub throwing. That's Andre Johnson across the 25 to the 27-yard line.
Again, Matt Schaub calling him to get back in the huddle. He feels with 4 minutes and a couple timeouts left that he's got plenty of time. You can see a hot start, and it has cooled considerably. 2 of 6 for a grand total of a half a dozen yards.
By the way, speaking of Arian Foster, didn't he stir up a little bit of a firestorm?
Yes, he did, by admitting that when he was at the University of Tennessee his senior year, he was taking money, and he pretty much told the NCAA, I don't really care what you think about it.
Shaw throws far side of the field, and that's Andre Johnson once again, and that'll be enough for a first down. Ladarius Webb. And Johnson.
Yeah, he just took himself out of the game, and he's looking at something on his right leg. I don't know if it's his knee or his foot.
Incidentally, we got word from the Baltimore Ravens that Terrence Cody is no longer doubtful for the rest of the day. He is out. So Cody will not return for the Ravens.
You can see Andre Johnson pointing to his lower leg right below the knee. Remember, he had some real hamstring issues last year that cost him a lot of playing time.
Shaw intercepted. Picked off by Darrell Smith. Smith up the sideline to the end zone for the touchdown.
Well, that is a veteran football player making a veteran play on the football. That's studying tape, knowing the Texans' tendencies, and look at him just undercut the tight end, just drifting into his hook zone. And Darrell Smith, that's just a heads-up play. Nothing spectacular, but it's doing your job.
That is the first interception by the Baltimore defense this year. And Smith returns it 37 yards for the touchdown. The extra point is good.
He knows the play is coming to him. Darrell Smith just sits there and waits for it. And Matt Schaub, you see quarterbacks do it all the time. They just don't see the underneath coverage. Owen Daniels is going to come back to the inside, and the Texans run that route over and over. And I'm telling you, that's just great film study, good preparation by Dean Pease and the rest of the defense. And Matt Schaub never saw Darrell Smith sitting inside.
You know, these Baltimore Ravens lost Ray Lewis on the inside of their linebacking core. They lost Donnell Ellerby, and John Harbaugh told us they felt fortunate that Darrell Smith was available and they could get him.
Yeah, Jameel McClain is still injured. He's on their PUP list. We talked earlier about what a key pickup Darrell Smith was for John Harbaugh's football team. Talk about a win-win deal. I don't want to denigrate Jacksonville in any way, but this is not Jacksonville here in Baltimore for Darrell Smith. This is a winning culture. Martin.
5 yards deep in his own end zone. Right up the middle and out across the 20 to about the 22-yard line. And Darrell Smith back onto the field with the defense.
And how quickly we see, no matter how gaudy those early drives were for the Texans, they ended up in field goals, and that's why they're behind. And Andre Johnson back in the huddle for the Texans. Good news there.
2:33 to play in the first half. And you're right, all the numbers favor the Houston Texans, but it's the Ravens who now have the lead at 10-6. Tate. Shoots a tackler at the 25 and up the sideline and up for a first down.
This is the play where Andre Johnson took himself out of the game. Actually, the next play was the one that actually took him out. But you could see I think that's, yeah, you could see he's getting up limping right there. It was the following play on the far sideline where he took himself out, but that was certainly looked like the play where he actually nicked himself.
On first down from the 32. Tate to about the 35-yard line. Courtney Upshaw stood him up there. And we get the 2-minute warning at 1:55 on the clock. Houston led most of the way. They now trail 10-6. One of the biggest hands you'll hear anywhere. Accorded that man as he just walked onto the field. At halftime, Ray Lewis will enter the Ravens Ring of Honor. Meanwhile, going down back at his 25-yard line is Matt Schaub, and Haloti Ngata led the charge.
Well, the all-pro Pro Bowler, Haloti Ngata, right up the middle, as he normally has to do. He splits a double team and gets to the inside of left guard Wade Smith. Chris Myers, the center, looking the other direction. And I guarantee you Ray Lewis just went, "That's my boy."
Now, Baltimore has all 3 of its timeouts remaining. We're down under a minute 20 to play in the first half. 3rd and 16. Screen to the far side. Foster down.
Take a timeout right here.
At the 24-yard line, James Ihedebo. And timeout is taken by the Ravens with 1:05 on the clock. A reminder, coming up, the Verizon halftime report. JB, Dan, Shannon Boomer, and the coach have all the latest NFL scores and highlights. Jim Nance and Phil Simms will preview the Colts 49ers game coming up on the Verizon halftime report. Nice hats.
Very nice hats. Well, Baltimore's going to get the ball back with a couple timeouts. Probably right at a minute, maybe a second or two underneath it. The one thing about Shane Leckler, every now and then he launches a kick that you've heard the saying before, outkicks his coverage.
Turn the field around.
Well, yeah, but he can also set up a big return by sometimes the return guy gets the ball and nobody's within 15 yards of it.
High, booming kick. Tamlin Doss.
Like this.
At his own 18. Right up the middle, and he breaks free with Leckler to beat. Up the sideline. And Doss is going to go for the touchdown. Great call, Dan Deerdorf.
Right down the middle of the field. And there wasn't a Texan within 15 yards of Tamlin Doss when he took that ball.
82 yards.
He got awfully close to the sideline when he goes around Leckler there. Oh, he's fighting it all the way down there, but I see nothing but green between his shoes and the sideline. What a job by Tamlin Doss. It looked to me like his momentum was going to carry him out of bounds. I think he fought it. I think he fought it for about 5 or 6 strides and stayed in bounds.
It is being reviewed upstairs automatically.
Well, let's take another close look at it. Defense and special teams getting it done for the Ravens.
That view is a little obstructed, but we've seen nothing on a replay that showed him.
Well, here we go again. I think I see green on every stride. See it there, see it there, see it there. And keep in mind, the call on the field was a touchdown. The call on the field was that he did not step out of bounds, and I don't see how John Perry is going to look at anything that's going to overturn that. That looked to me to be just a tremendous effort on the part of Tamlin Doss. And how many times have we seen the Ravens in this type of situation? It's their defense, it's their special teams that are getting it done when the offense isn't doing a whole lot. The only question would be whether the heel that time, but the reality is John Perry isn't going to look at a thing. John Perry isn't going to look at a thing that's going to be able to overturn that and say definitively he stepped out of bounds. I'm kind of surprised it's even being reviewed. To tell you the truth, I didn't think it was that close.
Well, apparently they saw enough upstairs to throw it down to John Perry and for him to take a look. And John Perry is still,
I don't know what he's
under the hood.
I mean, that's a touchdown. I mean, I don't know what.
Here he comes.
After reviewing the play stands as called.
John Perry is smiling because Ray Lewis said something to him as he went by.
He probably said, if I were you, I would not say he stepped out at the 30-yard line. Shane Leckler just unleashed a bomb. And if you don't pin a guy on the sidelines, if you give him a lot of room, you're asking for trouble.
It was a 58-yard punt and 82-yard return.
Nice job of setting it up by Doss. Again, he makes some people miss initially. That little stutter step to the left, I think, shifted the coverage. But the lanes broke down, contain broke down. And how's that for how about Tandon Doss? Not only does he get to run a punt back for a touchdown, but he gets to go right by Ray Lewis, cheering him on. There's a highlight that young man will take with him for the rest of his life. Not to mention, what a great piece of athleticism he demonstrated staying in bounds. That's a pretty stylish way to finish it off.
Personally, I think that's flirting with a little shoulder separation, but it happens.
I've never been in that situation, so I can't imagine the wave of sheer exuberance that comes over you.
First, the Darrell Smith interception return, then the Tandon Doss punt return. And Martin will not run this one out of the end zone. And Matt Schaub and the Texans have seen a severe turnaround in the last few minutes. 45 seconds to play. They trail now 16-9.
And all of a sudden, all those gaudy yardage stats and time stats and plays run, and et cetera, in the first quarter seems like an awfully long time ago.
Now Houston with 2 timeouts remaining, as does Baltimore. Schaub throwing this one, and that's complete to Owen Daniels, and he is hit hard by Ladarius Webb.
You know, the one thing, Greg, that can't get lost here, looking at this score, the Baltimore offense in this half has generated 65 yards of offense.
By the way, Andre Johnson not on the field here, and how about that strike across the 45 to about the 47 to DeAndre Hopkins.
And Houston will take a timeout.
Again, Andre Johnson not on the field.
Well, when Andre Johnson was injured last week in the overtime period at Tennessee, DeAndre Hopkins became the go-to guy. Now, number 11 right there in your photo, that's DeVere Posey. Now, this guy's a burner as well. So the Texans have people that can stretch the field. I'm not sure that this is the time and the place where they're going to run their patented crossing patterns to Owen Daniels. They need some vertical routes here because they've got to cover another 25, 30 yards to get in a decent field goal range.
Schaub throwing this side, and right there inside the 40-yard line to DeAndre Hopkins. He turned, and the ball was right there.
Big time throw by Matt Schaub. And again, DeAndre Hopkins, this guy just doesn't look like a rookie working against Jimmy Smith. And again, once again, Jimmy Smith loses his balance, unable to completely control himself at the end of the route when Hopkins breaks out of it. And that gives some separation. A couple different times now I've seen Jimmy Smith lose his balance.
That's complete to Posey, and he's inside the 30. And Houston will stop the clock.
Yeah.
With 8 seconds on the clock.
And this is about the most.
They're going to let it roll.
Right. And this is about the most Matt Schaub could have done in that situation. That was really good work. The Ravens were playing a little soft on the back end, and he took advantage of it.
So on comes Randy Bullock.
Now this is no sure thing. That's for sure. Remember, Bullock was on IR last year. He hurt his groin during training camp. Coming into this game, he was 1 for 5, and he's had a couple chip shots.
This is essentially his rookie year. Although officially in his second season out of Texas A&M. And he will attempt this one, it would appear, from about 47 yards out. Leckler handles this snap. The kick is on its way. And it's good. Well, keep in mind that for the first 2 weeks, the Houston Texans went to the locker room trailing at halftime, as they do today. The Baltimore Ravens, big touchdowns, lead at 17-9. Verizon halftime report after this message and a word from your local station. Going to go for the touchdown. And as we get set for the second half here in Baltimore, the Ravens with a 17-9 lead on the Houston Texans. Take a look at the DirecTV Ultimate Picture Cam. Boy, the Ravens turned this game around in a hurry. And Tandon Doss, with a little help from his special teams teammates, right up the sideline for 82 yards.
Well, there are 3 phases to every football team, Greg. Offense, defense, and special teams. The Baltimore Ravens, in the first 30 minutes of this game, have been getting stellar play from the defense and the special teams, and it's been enough to put them in the lead.
Greg Gumbel, Dan Deerdorf back. We were talking at some of the numbers that you pointed out that you can't possibly imagine that a team would have, like the Ravens, would have a lead at halftime with some of the numbers that they put up in the first half.
Well, we were just listening at halftime to the NFL Today talking about some of the miserable offensive performances. Take a look on the right there. The Ravens have a grand total of 65 total yards in the first half. 14 yards rushing, a measly 51 yards passing, and yet they find themselves in the lead.
And the reasoning is simple. You mentioned it early on. You cannot keep going into the red zone and come away with field goals and expect to survive that against a quality football team like Baltimore.
You and I have been doing this for a long time, Greg, and I know sometimes it might sound like we're harping to the audience about settling for field goals early, but we see it. We see it week after week after week. Settle for field goals early. A lot of times at the end of the game, you're going, well, that was the reason we lost.
Tandon Doss will return the kickoff as the Ravens get their hands on the ball first here in the second half. They won the opening coin toss and deferred, so they'll get the kickoff here leading as we start the second half. And Doss will let this one float into and out of the end zone for the touchback, and they'll start from the 20-yard line, and here comes Joe Flacco.
Well, we know that Anquan Bolden is gone. We know that Jacoby Jones is hurt. And we know that Dennis Pitta is hurt. And those are a lot of weapons that last year Joe Flacco relied on down in and down out. But the reality is now, Torrey Smith is still there. Marlon Brown has come in. Brandon, so you've got to try to stretch this Texans defense a little bit. You've got to try something a little bit farther down the field than 5 or 6 yards.
Flacco to throw on first down. And goes down at the 10-yard line. That's J.J. Watt.
And Joe, to me, looked like right before Watt came up the middle right on top of him, he was getting ready to let this thing go deep. He looked like he was getting ready to let it go. J.J. Watt starts on Michael Orr, works his way inside. See, that's the thing. Michael Orr had a good front on him, and so what did he do? He just slid laterally down the line, found a hole, a little slice of a gap, and went right up through that. The guy is relentless.
Little screen. This side. Bernard Pierce.
That's J.J. Watt. And again, I can't overestimate and oversell how unusual this is for a defensive lineman to have this kind of hustle. He's rushing the passer. He's rushing the passer, making moves on Marshall Yonda, and then look at him take off. Look at him burst and close. You know, a lot of times defensive linemen become spectators. Their job was done when they rushed the quarterback, not watch.
3rd and 13 for Flacco now. He has time coming up the sideline. He's got his man in stride. Torrey Smith out of bounds at the 35 of the Houston Texans. What a perfect throw from Joe Flacco.
An absolutely perfect throw. And again, that's the first time he's taken a shot, and you can see Jonathan Joseph surprised, Danielle Manning surprised, and Torrey Smith is behind both of them. You got a safety that's got the deep outside, you've got a corner who knows he's got help, and Torrey Smith outran them both.
That 48-yarder, the longest offensive play of the day by Baltimore. This is Pierce.
Now, Greg, I'll tell you something else. That completion to Torrey Smith changes the way now that the defense is going to be called by Wade Phillips. Because he doesn't have the luxury of sitting on everything short, because he's now got to keep a little safety help back there, especially on Torrey Smith. It's going to keep somebody out of the box, namely Ed Reed.
Back in Baltimore. And starting his first game of the season for Houston. Reed is very deep in the secondary on 2nd and 7. Flacco gonna loft this one. And that's pulled down inside the 10-yard line by Torrey Smith. What a catch by Smith.
Well, Joe Flacco realizes that even though Ed Reed has got the safety help, he's not a factor here. He's not going to get over. So he's treating that as single coverage. And look at Torrey Smith go up. He doesn't have pure possession at the middle, but it looks to me he lands inbounds.
Houston is challenging the previous play.
Well, they're going to say that Torrey Smith, some part of him, touched out of bounds before he had complete possession of the football.
John Perry will take a look and we'll take a break.
This will be really interesting. We're back in Baltimore. I think when Torrey Smith right here brings the ball down, Kareem Jackson gets his arm. Watch the ball come loose. Right there, he doesn't have complete possession, and his right toe touches out of bounds. I think John Perry is going to render this an incomplete pass. He's still under there looking at it. Now, it was ruled complete on the field, but it just looked to me that when Torrey, at first glance, I thought when he hit in the field of play that he had complete possession of the football. But that one angle, it looks to me like the ball is loose. It's sliding across his midsection,
and he didn't secure possession until he touched out of bounds.
He had already touched out of bounds. I agree with you. Right here, I think this is the definitive look. He doesn't have possession right there, and there's that right toe.
You saw the turf kick up. Yeah,
that right toe hits out of bounds. See what they're doing? They got to go back to the original line of scrimmage and try to figure out where that was to spot the ball.
Yeah, here's John Perry.
After reviewing the play, it's an incomplete pass. The receiver did not maintain possession and clear control of the football with both hands prior to the left foot touching out of bounds. It'll be 3rd and 7.
Good challenge.
Please reset the game clock.
Oh, very good challenge by the Texans. Again, when Torrey Smith hits the ground, he hits the ground in the field of play. If he had complete control of the ball, it would have been a completed pass right there. But he doesn't have complete control of the football. He doesn't get complete control of the football until he's halfway through that roll. So give Kareem Jackson, the corner for the Texans, some credit. He got his hand in there. He caused Torrey Smith to not be able to maintain complete control. But I'm telling you, Joe Flacco and Jim Caldwell, the offensive coordinator, they have changed the way Wade Phillips is going to call defense now for the Texans. They've now taken 2 shots, and that dictates a change in their defensive philosophy.
The upshot is it's a 3rd and 7. And Flacco needs the 27-yard line for a first down. No, the line of scrimmage is supposed to be
it's moving.
The 32.
Yep. John
Harbaugh's at 32. Those coaches.
Well, it wasn't a work of art by the officiating crew, but it appears that we might be, although Gary Kubiak
has a different opinion.
Well, it appears that we're going to play from the 32.
Oh, here comes John Perry now. They're going to talk about it. John Perry talking about it with each of the officials.
Oh, it's the 30. Well, it's 33. The original line of scrimmage was the 33.
And that's where they're
moving
repositioning the ball.
Gary Kubiak was right to fight for that extra yard.
And John Perry's going to come over and look at this under the hood.
To confirm that the chains are correct, we're going to go back and make sure the chains are 37.
Well, you can hear his mic breaking in and out, so he's going to come back and take a look to exactly where the line of scrimmage was on that, what ended up being the incomplete pass to Torrey Smith.
And on the previous play,
we'll dial it up for you right here.
Right here, the 33-yard line. This is where, Dan, perhaps a little time could be saved, but maybe just word passed down from upstairs that, yes, you're right, it's the 33.
But in the NFL, the referee is in charge. He is in charge of making these kind of decisions. Duke Carroll is the supervisor upstairs. But John Perry apparently wants to see it with his own eyes. Our producer, Mark Wolf, our director, Bob Fishman. They're bringing it up for us. Pretty clear. Gino Gradkowski bent over the ball. It's sitting exactly on the 33-yard line. I would say that's pretty definitive.
Gary Kubiak is going to feel really good if this next play comes up 1 yard short of a first down.
Well, I like the way John Harbaugh was really selling the 32. You got to give him an A for salesmanship.
Here's John Perry.
The chains had moved. The back stake will be reset at the 35-yard line. It is 3rd and 7. The ball is spotted at the 33-yard line correctly. 12:49 on the game clock. We'll start the clock on the snap.
Let's play ball.
You know, if the back chain is at the 35 and it's spotted at the 33, that would make it 3rd and 8, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
And from where it is now to the 25 is 8 yards.
Well, what's important is that the chains on the sidelines are accurate. They must get to the 25
for a first down. We're pretty sure. Flacco, complete, across the middle. Smith has first down yardage and more. Inside the 10, down the sideline, diving, and it appears he's out of bounds.
There's an official back about the 8-yard line. Well, all of a sudden, Joe Flacco and Torrey Smith have come to life. Again, when you've got man coverage, and that's exactly what was going on right there. Bryce McCain trying to chase, and you could see clearly, yes, that Torrey Smith went out of bounds. But that's an impossibility for a corner to run all the way across the formation, chasing someone as fast as Torrey Smith.
First and goal, Bernard Pierce, right side, tripped up and forward to about the 7.5-yard line. J.J. Watt going to get credit for that tackle.
And again, this all changed for Wade Phillips, who's just one of the best defensive minds the game of football has seen in the modern era.
Dan, you remember you said at halftime the Ravens had 65 total yards, 72 on this drive alone.
They have awakened. For how long, we'll see.
Flacco, end zone, incomplete. Penalty marker.
Well, Kareem Jackson once again didn't appear to be playing the football. You know, he got an interference call in the first half.
Pass interference, defense, number 25, arm grab, spot of the foul was in the end zone. It'll be first and goal at the 1-yard line.
He just appears to be playing the receiver instead of actually making a play on the football. There can be some incidental contact. That just happens, but not if you aren't making an effort to play the football. And that time Kareem Jackson was only playing the receiver.
First and goal from the 1. Leach and Pierce. This is Pierce. Short of the goal line.
Boy, that was some heavy hitting right there. Brian Cushing, I think, had the initial hit. Check out what it sounds like down there. Yeah, Brian Cushing, the leading tackler, and that's just an outstanding form tackle.
Ray Rice looking on, second and goal. Pierce walks into the end zone.
Well, where Vontae Leach goes, I shall follow. And that's exactly what Bernard Pierce does. Just a simple kick out, an overload on that side, and that's just old-fashioned power smash mouth football.
Justin Tucker for the extra point. And with 11:05 to play in the third quarter, the Baltimore Ravens have stretched their lead to 24-9. Back to Baltimore in just a moment.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Southwest Airlines. Find our fares online only at southwest.com. Samsung Smart TV. TV has never been better. And by Ford. Only Ford gives you EcoBoost fuel economy and a whole lot more.
Back in Baltimore, 11 minutes, 5 seconds to play in the third quarter, and Baltimore has broken this thing open. It's a 24-9 lead on a Houston team that came from 3 touchdowns down in its opening week victory at San Diego. And this one will sail out of the end zone for the touchback. Boy, what a moving moment at halftime today here in Baltimore. Ray Lewis became the latest member of the Ravens Ring of Honor, joining people like former owner Art Modell and Peter Boulware, Jamal Lewis, Matt Stover, Jonathan Ogden, and others. But a genuine outpouring of love and affection for the guy who led this franchise for the last 17 years.
The bad news was the vendors here sold nothing at halftime. Every single person stayed in their seat, as well they should. They were seeing history.
Shaw running, throwing, sideline, and that is complete just across the 30-yard line. Let's go back to the touchdown.
Yeah, it's an overload. Right here you see they bring another offensive lineman in, number 71. You see him right here? That's Rick Wagner, and they're just going to run power football. Every team in the league does that, and then here comes Leach, and that was pretty much uncontested by the Texans.
By the way, that last catch was made by Andre Johnson, and he's back in the lineup. This is Foster. Brought down by James Ahedibo. Back to the NFL today. JB and the coach.
28-yard pass to Ladarius Green sets this up, Coach.
Yeah, Ronnie Brown, the first rushing touchdown in the last 14 games. They take the lead 17-10. And remember, this is their second consecutive trip to the East Coast playing 1 o'clock games. San Diego looking good.
Late in the third, back to Greg and Dan.
Boy, that AFC West is garnering a little notoriety.
The Chargers are surprising people.
Foster, right side, across the 40. And that is very close to a first down at the 42-yard line. Darrell Smith and Ahedibo again in on the stop.
And this is no time for the Houston Texans to get away from still running the football for 2 reasons. One, it's what they do best. And there's still enough time in this football game where they can run their way back into this game. The other side of it is I don't think Derek Newton and Ryan Harris, their 2 tackles in this game, can deal with Suggs and Elvis Boomerville. Not in obvious passing situations.
Schaub on first down.
What a catch.
DeAndre Hopkins once again.
DeAndre Hopkins has stepped to the plate because of some injuries to Andre Johnson. And look at Andre Johnson right here. Look how tenderly he's trying to go across underneath. Andre Johnson looks to me right now playing at about 80%.
He took a hit in the first half and has been pretty ginger ever since.
And he got kneed in the knee, if you can believe that.
On 2nd and 4, this is Tate. And Tate brought down short of midfield by Ahedibo, who's been all over the field. Let's go back to the first half and see what happened to Andre Johnson.
Yeah, he's going to make this catch. Now, it's when he's already on the ground. Watch this, right there. You can see Josh Bynes, number 56. His knee just comes completely inadvertently right in on the knee of Andre Johnson. And Johnson got up from that gimpy, and he's been gimpy ever since.
3rd and 3. That's Johnson moving across the formation. Penalty marker. Shot throwing incomplete. Let's check the flag.
Illegal shift. Offense. Number 80 never got set. Penalty's been declined. Result of the play. 4th down.
Well, I'm telling you, Andre Johnson, if he can't move any better than that, they need to get him out of there because he's not a threat to do much of anything. And I think even going in motion right there was painful for him. I think that injury caused the penalty.
Meanwhile, Mr. Doss standing back at his own 10-yard line. Fair catch made at the 11-yard line. And we have another penalty marker.
16 accepted penalties in this game, and I'm not sure how many we've had that have been declined. Close to a handful.
During the kick, holding. Number 91 of the return team. That penalty will be assessed from the end of the kick. Timeout on the field.
That penalty is on Courtney Upshaw. Well, the last time the Ravens had the football, Bernard Pierce, and then Torrey Smith, and then Pierce once again. And now, the Ravens starting deep in their own territory after this. Once again, we remind you, aerial coverage of today's game is provided by MetLife. 7:48 to play here in the third quarter.
This is one of the best football environments in the National Football League. This crowd is into it. The stadium is beautiful. The Inner Harbor here in Baltimore is just a visual treat. Never get tired of being here.
And they do love their Ravens, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Bernard Pierce for a couple. Gives us an opportunity to remind you Tuesday on CBS. Person of Interest moves to its new night and time. Don't miss the season premiere. Tuesday at 10, 9 Central only. CBS.
Well, the Ravens, even though they've got a nice lead in this game, cannot run this football. They just can't. They can't get anything on the ground. They have a grand total of 19 rushing yards. Pierce has rushed it a dozen times for 18 yards.
Flacco. To his tight end, Dallas Clark. Out to about the 12-yard line, and that's about 4 yards shy of a first down. It'll be 3rd and 4.
I mean, this is the time in a football game where you try to nurse that lead by, exercising your will at the line of scrimmage and muscling out some first downs on the ground. The Ravens aren't even close to being able to do that.
Flacco got rid of it. Complete to Vontae Leach. Leach fighting for a first down and appears to have it at about the 16-yard line.
Man, some people are just football players.
And we got a
Personal
penalty.
foul, roughing the passer, defense, number 59. Contact to the quarterback's helmet. 15-yard penalty, automatic, first down.
That penalty is on Whitney Merciless.
You can make contact with the quarterback's helmet, but it can't be forceful.
Oh, he led with his helmet.
He did it with his helmet. When I heard the description, I thought maybe it was with the hand. No, he puts his helmet right in Joe Flacco's chin. That was correctly called by the officials, and Mr. Merciless is liable to get a FedEx from the league office asking for a donation.
Pierce. Across the 30 to the 31. Joe Mays and Merciless in on that stop.
Again, Ray Rice isn't playing today, but Bernard Pierce just is not the beneficiary of much in the way of blocking. But geez, the production is just non-existent. 13 rushes for 18 yards, less than a yard and a half a carry.
Hey, we have another flag.
That time it looked like Merciless and Antonio Smith were the duo in motion.
Neutral zone infraction, defense, number 94. 5-yard penalty, second down.
Again, Joe Flacco got 2 of them to move. That's a sign of a savvy quarterback, changing the snap count around. Don't let the defense get into a rhythm. Your offensive linemen love you for it.
Steelers OP! Steelers OP! Set!
To the 40, we get another update from New York. James Brown, Bill Cowher, take it away.
Greg, 30 unanswered points by the Pack.
Aaron Rodgers right here. You're going to see him. He's going to find James Jones scrambling around back of the end zone. Best quarterback, I think, in the game today. 30-14, Green Bay.
May not have much argument. Maybe some of Peyton's fans. Back to Greg and Dan.
What did I just tell you, Dan? It doesn't really pay to make Aaron Rodgers angry, does it?
No. He is so good.
3rd and 1. This is Pierce. He's got to get there.
I'm sorry, but Ray Rice wouldn't have made anybody miss there either. I mean, that's just Joe Mays is unblocked again in the Ravens backfield. The play before that, Bernard Pierce had to dodge somebody in the backfield. Again, just knifing in off the backside, seeing a gap and shooting it is Joe Mays. I'm telling you what, this is John Harbaugh and Jim Caldwell cannot even be in the zip code with happy about their running game.
You know, you can't fault this Houston defense too much today. An interception return for a touchdown in the 82-yard punt return. Deshaun Barker, fair catch. Just inside the 20-yard line. We're at 4:04 to play in the 3rd. Baltimore in the lead.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by FedEx. Request when and where your packages are delivered with FedEx Delivery Manager. And by the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot.
We remind you the NFL and all 32 teams are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. Visit NFL.com/Hispanic Heritage to hear the personal stories of Hispanic players in the NFL. Andre Johnson, spectator, as this series of downs begins at the 20-yard line.
I don't think they had much of a choice. The way he was moving on their last possession, he was a liability.
That pass is complete across the 35 to Keyshawn Martin. SAP broadcaster for CBS, Benny Ricardo. Here's how he saw the Tandon Doss touchdown.
La patada de Leckler que casi fue desviado. Tandon Doss está a la 18. Sigue avanzando, tiene lugar de correr. Ahora viene la carrera. Leckler le saca por afuera, pero no. Acá se va Tandon Doss.
That play goes nowhere with Arian Foster. Marcus Spears making the stop.
Yeah, Marcus Spears having to play more snaps than normal because Chris Canty inactive today with a groin injury. I'm telling you, and Terrence Cody, he went out with a leg injury in the first quarter, so this is a pretty thin defensive line. I think Canty, though, was an outstanding pickup for the Ravens.
Shaw over the middle, got his man. Keyshawn Martin across midfield into Baltimore territory for a Houston first down.
There's some young talent on this Texans wide receiving core. DeAndre Hopkins and Keyshawn Martin, just a second-year guy from Michigan State. But Matt Schaub is getting confidence in these guys. He talks about the quality of their route running, that they take pride in their precision and doing things exactly the way he wants them.
Straight drop for Schaub, throwing and complete. And that's DeAndre Hopkins once again. And once again, James Brown and Bill Cowher getting paid by the word today.
Brian Hoyer's third pick led to this.
Here we go. Christian Ponder, his second rushing touchdown of the day. This one 8 yards out, and right now it's all tied up in Minnesota, 24 all.
Gifts like that can hurt. Back to Greg and Dan.
All right, guys, thank you. 2nd and 1 for the Texans. And this is Ben Tate looking for the first down, and he has it, coming to the near side and bumped out of bounds at about the 35-yard line.
Greg, with 1:59 left in the third, if the Texans get a touchdown on this drive, all comfort is going to leave this stadium as it now becomes a one-possession ball game. And keep in mind that last week against Tennessee, the Texans sent it to overtime by scoring a touchdown and a two-point conversion.
And then won it in OT with a touchdown.
If they were to score a touchdown here and an extra point, it'd be 24-16, which would leave them exactly 8 points from tying it up.
Shaw throws out into the flat, and that's going to go nowhere. Ben Tate hit out there and hit hard by Courtney Upshaw.
Well, not so much how hard, it was just technically perfect. What a squared up tackle by Courtney Upshaw, who's 270 pounds. Now this is against a pretty elusive guy in space. That's how you square your shoulders. You get right in there, you wrap up. Boy, there's a novel concept. You wrap up with both arms, you drive, and you put him down. Outstanding.
Loss of 5 on the play, 2nd and 15. This one going deep down the sideline and in overthrown and complete.
Oh, and Schaub first threw that. I thought Ladarius Webb was the intended receiver.
I thought we'd see a penalty flag for early movement on the offensive line.
Yeah, it did look like Derek Newton jumped out of his stance early. But that Ladarius Webb, that had zero chance of completion.
How happy is John Harbaugh to have him back and healthy?
Yeah, when he went down last year with that knee injury, I think the 6th game of the year against Dallas, a big loss, even though they still won the Super Bowl. I felt bad he couldn't be out there in that win.
3rd and 15. And we get a stoppage. Why? Looks like a timeout, Baltimore.
Baltimore did take a timeout.
Baltimore.
So the Ravens burn the first of their timeouts here in the second half. We'll take 1-2, 24-9. Houston started this game terrifically on 3rd down. Not so good after going 2 out of 2. They've been 0 for 7 since then. Shaw throwing. Incomplete off the hands of Keyshawn Martin. Like Martin had a step on his man, too. Jimmy Smith.
Well, Jimmy Smith had the underneath coverage. Again, Jimmy Smith, though, wasn't in a position to make a play on the ball. I don't think Jimmy Smith even knew where the ball was, but his coverage wasn't as bad as it looked right there. But Smith did not have ball awareness.
Let's see if Shane Leckler can pull his specialty of pinning a team inside the 20-yard line. You betcha. Down at the 3. Hey, tomorrow on CBS, it's finally here, the premiere of Hostages. Be sure to watch it Monday so you can talk about it Tuesday. Hostages, tomorrow at 10/9 Central, only CBS.
Well, I can only assume that the Ravens were challenged a little bit during that series while their defense was out on the field to do anything in the running game. You can see Vontae Leach right there was barking some things out to his teammates in the huddle. 22 rushing yards on 17 attempts. Almost unthinkable.
This is Pierce. Pierce breaks through, right side, up the sideline, leapfrogs over a man and out of bounds. And Ed Reed was the man that he jumped over.
Well, whatever Vontae Leach said must have had some impact, because this is the first crease that a Ravens running back has seen in a while. And Vontae Leach got the kick-out block on Danielle Manning. And Ed Reed right now, he did what he had to do, even though Pierce actually hurdled him, but it forced him out of bounds. Pretty good move there for a guy who's listed at 218 and who actually weighs a little over 230. Bernard Pierce.
They're going to let the remaining time tick off the clock, and we will have played 3 here in Baltimore with the score. The Ravens 24, the Texans 9. We're coming back after this message and a word from your local station. You're watching the NFL on CBS. That's Bernard Pierce walking on the sideline and
trying to stretch out that left leg. I don't know if it was a calf or a hamstring. After that hurdle of Ed Reed, he went over there and immediately got down trying to stretch it out.
Sean Drone is in at the running back position as we start the 4th.
Brian Cushing not only drawing off sides, he made contact and everything. That was
Encroachment, defense, number 56, 5-yard penalty, first down.
Kudos to Joe Flacco. He has had the Texans defense guessing a lot of times incorrectly all day long as to his cadence. He has done a masterful job of mixing it up and throwing a hard count on him that's getting them to jump off sides.
On 1st and 5, that pass is complete to Marlon Brown. You know, we saw Bernard Pierce leap over Ed Reed. You know, Ed Reed must be feeling a little bit like a hurdle. This is Brett Selleck last season in Philadelphia. No Sean Moreno, and Ed Reed doesn't even go down. And then just a short while ago, Bernard Pierce Ed did the high hurdle thing.
Ed did his job there, forcing Pierce out of bounds. The other two, those were just extraordinary. Moreno and Selleck. Now you just don't see that every day.
Down the sideline, incomplete. Torrey Smith being battled by Jonathan Joseph.
Well, Joe Flacco identified single coverage over there. Jonathan Joseph is locked up with man coverage all the way. He gave his receiver a chance to make a play. Sometimes the defenders just, he makes a play as well. That was just textbook coverage by Jonathan Joseph.
3rd and short yardage. And straight ahead for the first down is Drone. Talking about giving out credit, Dan, that Baltimore defense. You made mention of the fact when they held Houston early on to field goals instead of touchdowns, and giving Joe Flacco and the offense a little time to get into sync.
Well, the Texans haven't been in the end zone yet. 3 field goals for those 9 points. That was nice to run for a first down there by the Ravens offense.
Flacco throws, and at midfield, it's complete to Torrey Smith. Let's get you back to New York once again. Another update with JB and the coach.
And it's a fantasy one, Greg.
Oh, yeah, Drew Brees over 300 yards, 2 touchdown passes. This one rushing 7 yards out. This is his 8th straight 300-yard game. New Orleans up big, 24-7 over Arizona.
Yep, if you had him, you're doing well. Back to Greg and Dan.
All right, guys, thank you. We're under 13 and a half to play here in the fourth quarter. Flacco again with second and short yardage. This side complete to Dallas Clark. And Clark out of bounds, but not before he's got a first down inside the 40-yard line.
Well, Dallas Clark still has some football left in him. He was never a blocker at the line of scrimmage. Always a gifted route runner with just velvety soft hands.
Which made him a perfect target for Peyton Manning in Indianapolis.
And here in Baltimore without Dennis Pitta, who was their receiving tight end, until Pitta comes back, Dallas Clark is going to have to fill the bill. Well, now Michael Orr moved, and he's going to say that he was induced by a neutral zone infraction by Brooks Reed. Let's see if he...
Neutral zone infraction. Defense, number 58, 5-yard penalty. First down.
As an offensive lineman, you got to make it instantaneous.
You know why I don't like that call, Dan? Is because he's not directly opposite him.
Well, by rule, though, Reed was close enough. The rule book is specific about how far away the guy can be. The thing of it is, that wasn't an instant move by Michael Orr. It was just smart football to pick up 5 yards.
That is the fifth defensive offside committed by the Houston Texans. Drone. J.J. Watt. But what did Marshall Yanda call him when we talked to him yesterday? A game wrecker.
A game wrecker, and he is that, and everything else. He's just relentless. The guy's motor, he just doesn't stop. We had some illustrations earlier in this game, but you know, there's a lot of guys that have a big motor, but they don't have the physical gifts that J.J. Watt does.
Way to go!
Thrown again. As obviously the Ravens try to take a little time off of this clock with the running game.
And Shane Drone is their only running back. All right, Marshall Yanda, the Pro Bowler, working on J.J. Watt. Again, look at J.J.'s ability, how well he fights off the block with his hands, keeps the blocker from getting into his chest, from really getting good, solid contact with him. Great hand fight.
And by the way, both those guys mutually complimentary of each other. When we talk to them, there's Flacco throwing, and that's complete inside the 30-yard line to Dallas Clark for a first down.
Now Marshall Yanda won the last one because Watt took it inside on him, and Yanda drives him out of the passing lane. Here it is one more time. Watt takes the inside, tries to do that overarm, and Marshall Yanda drives him all the way down the line of scrimmage. That opens up a nice little passing lane for Joe Flacco.
On first down, this one goes nowhere. Bernard Pierce is back in the game.
But this drive is really hurting the Texans. Baltimore doing exactly what they have to do to protect the lead. Consume some clock, trying to move down into field goal range where you could make this more than a 2-score game.
This one is more than 5 minutes right now.
Yeah. This is how you win football games right here.
Pierce slipping down.
Yeah, that was one of those deals where Pierce saw J.J. Watt, and I think he'd like to have another shot at that. He looked like he saw J.J. Watt and his legs just gave out.
You may have noticed that brace on J.J. Watt's elbow. He says he's pretty much stuck with that. It's a result of a dislocated elbow. And he says no matter how it feels, he's going to wear it.
Yeah, he did it last year during the preseason, and You're right. He's probably going to wear that the balance of his career. Once it dislocates, it's more prone to do so.
Flacco over the middle. That's incomplete. Bounce at the 5.
Nearly intercepted by Danielle Manning.
You know, and these Houston defenders look pretty gassed right now.
This looks like, what, 45 yards?
45 on the nose for Justin Tucker.
This would be a big score for the Ravens. This would make this a 3-score ball game.
On its way. And good. 45-yard field goal puts the Ravens up 27-9. J.J. Watt and his defensive brethren getting a little rest on the sideline.
Well, they all know that that drive was very damaging. Chewed up clock that they couldn't afford to lose, and it also gave up points.
Dan, how about this Baltimore defense? They allowed 49 against Denver week 1, 6 to Cleveland last week, 9 to Houston today.
Well, they gave up enough touchdowns in Denver to last them for a while. Obviously, they didn't want to go through that again.
We'll start at the 20-yard line. 9:09 to play in the 4th.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by TD Ameritrade. Moto X, designed by you, assembled in the USA. And by oneandone.com. Pre-reserve now from over 700 new domains with oneandone.com.
Our producer Mark Wolf, our director Bob Fishman, Greg Gumbel, Dan Deardorff, and the rest of our terrific CBS Sports crew here in Baltimore, where Matt Schaub needs touchdowns. That one broken up over the middle by Ladarius Webb, intended for DeVere Posey, in need of touchdowns against a defense that hasn't given up a touchdown for quite some time, Dan.
No, the last guy to score against this Ravens defense was Peyton Manning in the opener when he threw the 7 touchdowns. What Matt Schaub needs right now is some protection, because now this is where this offensive line could be in real trouble.
Out of the backfield is Tate. Tate pushed out of bounds about the 25-yard line. And the clock quickly becoming the enemy of the Houston Texans. 3rd and 4. Now we asked Gary Kubiak, does he have a hurry-up offense? He said, yeah, we call it NASCAR.
That part of the country, they take that pretty seriously.
Schaub on 3rd and 4. Throwing on the slant across the 30-yard line, complete to DeAndre Hopkins for a first down. Webb was there to hit him, but not before he got first down yardage.
Well, if you're a fan of the National Football League, you better get used to that name, DeAndre Hopkins. He is the real deal. Their number 1 pick this year, the 27th guy taken, but he is already polished.
Schaub throwing, and that's Hopkins once again out to the 38. Yeah, he's everything you like in a young receiver, isn't he? He's big, he's got a great target, great hands, and good speed.
And he gets to study and sit next to in meetings the great Andre Johnson, right there, who unfortunately is out of this game.
That's complete across the 40-yard line to Owen Daniel.
And again, this Baltimore defense right now, what they're interested in is making everything happen in front of them. They'll give up every 5-yard completion you want to give up.
There's Matt Elam, the rookie safety.
He'll pop you if he gets a chance.
Shaw goes down at the 34. In on him was Arthur Jones. That's his 2nd sack of the season.
And again, this time it doesn't come off the edge. It comes right up the middle. Arthur Jones gets inside. Wade Smith, the left guard. Again, there was a crease there because the center's working to the other direction. Sacks are hard to come by for those interior guys.
Shot on 2nd and 17, loose screen to the right side, and that's Devere Posey. You know, going back to Matt Elam when we were talking to him, Dan, I remember you asked him on a scale of 1 to 10, how's your coverage skills? He said, I'll give myself a 10. He said, how about your tackling skills? I'll give myself a 10.
That's when I immediately realized I'll shift directions and try another tact. Likeable kid. He's got all the skill set you want. He's going to make mistakes like all rookies. Play him now. I'm telling you, by December, he won't be a rookie anymore.
3rd and 10. And this is a false start.
False start. Offense number 81. 5-yard penalty. 3rd down.
Boy, the penalties today.
Have been
Killer.
well, there've just been so many of them.
And numerous, yes.
22 accepted penalties in this game.
13 for Houston,
And I can-
9 for the Ravens.
And I can think of at least 4 that were declined. There might have been more.
15 yards for a first down. Schaub over the middle. Complete at midfield to Posey, and he's about 2.5 yards short of a first down. Gary Kubiak go for it?
Well,
Yes, he is.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. There is safety held deep. Michael Alp was back there, but man underneath with Ladarius Webb. And again, the Texans didn't have a play called to execute it at the line of scrimmage. With it being 4th and 2, they're making sure everybody's on the same page.
We are coming up on 5 minutes to play. And now we get a timeout. Houston takes a timeout. Each team down to 2. 5:03 to play in the 4th. Well, Gary Kubiak probably didn't want to use a timeout there, but on 4th and 2, you really want to make sure that you get the call right.
Well, a lot of times you have 2 calls in the huddle. They obviously didn't do that and were caught unprepared.
Schaub throws this side, incomplete. The ball goes over to the Ravens.
So even with a huddle with a timeout, Baltimore all over that play. This has been some stellar defensive performance by the Ravens after looking leaky on the first 2 possessions where the Texans got a lot of yardage but only got field goals out of them. Since then, the Texans have been hard-pressed to move the football with any efficiency at all.
And this Houston team has not been a slouch on offense. 30.5 points a game over their first 2 games. They've managed 3 field goals today.
Well, they averaged 450 yards in offense those first 2 games. They've got a whopping 260. They've got a whopping 260 right now.
Bernard Pierce. And we get a timeout called by the Texans. Meanwhile, Ed Reed, in his return to Baltimore, lots of hugs and waves to everyone. Downstairs in the tunnels, and then got in on that tackle in the first half, but really hasn't been that active today.
No, but the important thing is he played. He hasn't been in a real football game since the Super Bowl back in February. This is important for him to get out there, Greg, and get some live action.
You and I were talking between ourselves, Dan, about how he did not strike us as being overly emotional about coming back to Baltimore and playing against the Ravens when we spoke with him. But then again, Ed Reed doesn't get overly emotional about a great many things.
No, he doesn't. But he understands that football is a business. I think he would prefer. See where Pierce goes with this.
And Pierce with running room and out of bounds at the 40. Fans want a flag, and they won't get one here.
Well, that was close to a horse collar tackle. That's what they're. Sharpton was the defender that kind of drew a little gasp from the crowd. Good to see Bernard Pierce back in the game.
But yes, you were saying that Ed Reed recognizes it's a business, and he treated it that way at the end of last year.
Right. Good non-call there, by the way, by the official. It wasn't a horse collar. But yeah, Ed Reed knows it's a business. I think what he really was excited about today and was the fact that Ray Lewis was going in the Ring of Fame at halftime. I said, Ed, if you could say anything to the crowd, what would it be? And he said, I would only talk about Ray. And I think he was serious.
Illegal substitution. Defense, 12 men with the snap imminent. 5-yard penalty, first down.
Another.
Well, now each team is even. Baltimore got called for it one time, and now Houston returns the favor. That is the 14th accepted penalty on the Texans, which ties a franchise record.
And that's 23 for the day, and that's the most in the NFL this season. First and 5, Pierce. To about the 31.
And it's only been here in the fourth quarter where the Ravens running backs have found any room at all. We'll be back right after this.
Timeout.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by the redesigned Honda Odyssey. Honda, start something special. And by Subway. Any regular footlong is a $5 footlong at Subway this September.
That last timeout charged to the Houston Oilers, and there you see Andre Johnson. His day finished, his knee wrapped. Houston Texans, rather. And Johnson with just 5 catches for 36 yards today. Second and 2. Pierce inside the 30 and very close to another first down and a little shoving.
Well, it looked to me like he got the first down.
And Houston is out of timeout. John Perry says,
oh no, look
short.
where they spotted it. Jeez, I thought he got inside the 30 easily. Well, the Ravens are letting the clock run all the way down. They'll take a timeout and stop the clock.
Baltimore's challenged the previous play of being short of the first down.
Well, they thought what I thought, that he picked up the first down.
Well, his knee hit before the 30-yard line.
But the ball was across the 30.
Split the difference.
Well, we're back in Baltimore. If we could roll this thing, we're going to show you right here where the knee touches.
Forward progress
right there
has been confirmed.
And there is where you have to go for the first down. So John Harbaugh and I were incorrect. That was actually a very good spot.
And that costs Baltimore its final timeout.
John Perry explained that that was a good spot.
So now it's 3rd and 1. Vontae Leach. And he's got the first down.
Well, I tell you, Vontae Leach is he's one of those guys, you've heard the old expression, a high tide floats all boats. And he's that rare gift. He makes everybody around him better. Through his work ethic, through his approach to the game, to his hard-nosed, blue-collar, lunch pail attitude. He is old-fashioned.
If you're wondering, everybody's out of timeouts. Baltimore doesn't want to stop the clock. Houston can't. This is Pierce. And Pierce to about the 27, maybe the 26-yard line.
Well, Matt Schaub and the Houston Texans, they've got a tough road here coming up because they go back home to play Seattle, and then they have to go to the West Coast to play the 49ers. Now that is a trio of games, traveling here to Baltimore, home for Seattle, and going to the 49ers. That is a trio of big-time opposition. 3 of the best teams in the NFL. The defending champion, and then the Seahawks and 49ers.
This is Pierce. Inside the 25 to the 23. And that will take us to the 2-minute warning.
Meanwhile, Baltimore gets to go on the road for a couple of weeks. They go to Buffalo and they go to Miami before they come back here to M&T to play the Packers. That'll be some matchup, this defense against Aaron Rodgers.
It didn't start well for these Baltimore Ravens today, but boy, did they rebound. 2 minutes to play, and they're very much in charge on Ray Lewis Day. Back here in Baltimore, while we have a moment, we would like to send out our thoughts and prayers and condolences to one of our colleagues, cameraman Bruce Levitt, on the loss of his dad, Matt.
Well, there's unfortunately a false start.
And Bruce will be back with us soon, and we're all thinking about him and his family.
Yes, we are, Bruce. Vontae Leach rolled out of his stance prematurely.
That's Vontae Leach. And Leach pulls his way inside the 25, about the 25-yard line. And the clock continues to move, coming up on 1:45 to play. And 4th and 5. Does John Harbaugh want the field goal? He does.
I would think so. It's just good experience. Get Justin Tucker out here to. Certainly not going to be the difference between winning and losing, but.
So he will line this one up from 43 yards out. Off the left hash. And a timeout is called before the clock ran down. Well, we have more good stuff coming your way here on CBS. Young quarterback standouts, Andrew Luck and the Colts, Colin Kaepernick and the San Francisco 49ers, or the Bills take on the New York Jets, Jacksonville out in Seattle against the Seahawks. Check your local listings for the game in your area.
Well, that Colts 49ers game, that's a matchup I want to see. I want to see if Trent Richardson is how much he could get into that Indianapolis playbook and how much of a factor he could be.
Andrew Luck, this is Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh, Andrew Luck.
Have they ever met before?
Oh, I'm sure they passed in the hallway once or twice.
Yeah.
It's 43 yards. That's perfect. 3 more on the board for the Baltimore Ravens.
Well, it is the Harbaugh day here at CBS. John Harbaugh's getting a win here, talking to his quarterback Joe Flacco. His younger brother Jim will lead the 49ers against Jim's former college quarterback at Stanford, Andrew Luck. Had a nice visit with Jack Harbaugh, the patriarch of the family. He's here in attendance, and
he seems to be the one that has the least edge in the family.
Well, you're right about that. Although Jack could get after it when he had to, but for an old coach, which is what Jack Harbaugh is, I just can't imagine the sense of pride that he has in watching the success that that his sons wanted to do what he did. That they found enough merit in what their father did that they said, I want to be like Dad. And then to actually do it to the level of success that they've enjoyed. I mean, Jack Harbaugh, he must get up in the morning sometimes and pinch himself and go,
well done.
Are you kidding me?
Well done, sure.
And then his daughter's married to Tom Crean, a basketball coach.
Saw them at the Super Bowl. Yeah. Sierra Wood will not run this one out of the end zone, so it'll be a touchback. And once a coach takes off the headset, he's feeling pretty good about the game.
Well, I think he's talking to Joe about the fact. I'm sure Joe's looking up at that scoreboard and 30 points and saying, yeah, well, we have 236 yards in total offense. I don't think the offense of the Ravens is exactly jumping up and down saying, boy, we kicked butt today.
TJ Yates is at quarterback now for the Ravens, and this is Sierra Wood. the rookie free agent out of Notre Dame.
And Gary Kubiak content at this point in the game to just run the football. Let's get on the airplane and fly back to Houston.
Matt Schaub finishes his day 25 out of 35 for 194 and an interception.
And that interception was returned for a touchdown by Darrell Smith. It was a backbreaker.
And Sierra Wood figures to get another carry here up the middle. And that can bring this one to a close.
Well, again, one thing that we all know and proven once again, coming to M&T Stadium and trying to beat the Ravens is a tall task.
Houston loses its first of the season to fall to 2-1. Baltimore wins its second of the season to improve to 2-1. Once again, the Ravens a winner over the Texans. Let's take you to New York and James Brown.